Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. Be seen on WHPR Detroit Live, Comcast Cable Channel 91, on the web at TV33WHPR.com, with the TV33 app, on Roku, Google TV, Apple TV, and on Amazon Fire TV. Act now. Time slots are limited. Sign up today and get a free replay with the purchase of your time slot. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
Watch Anthony Adams, We, Detroit. We Deserve Better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
My name is Anthony Adams, and this is the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show, where we discuss current issues impacting the quality of life of our citizens in Detroit and Highland Park. And my name is Anthony Adams, and I am your host for today. One thing I enjoy about this program is that it gives me the opportunity to talk about a wide range of things that have happened in the city of Detroit. And this weekend, I actually participated in probably one of the more exciting events that occurred in the city. It was a program honoring black men who had been wrongfully convicted based on the testimony, a false testimony of police officers. It was a sterling ceremony where we had more than 10 African-American men who served more than 200 years for wrongful incarceration. And what was interesting about the program was the spirit of the men who participated. Because as each man came forward to receive their award, which was a championship belt structured after the Kronk Gym, because the program actually took place in the Kronk Community Boxing Center over on Chicago and Meditown. It was a program that was accompanied by a lot of the old champions of Kronk, whether it was Tommy Hitman, Hearns, and just a number of the other champions who had come up through the Kronk stable. It symbolized the fight and the intestinal fortitude of the men who were incarcerated for more than 200 years collectively. I think what I found interesting about the program was really listening to the individual stories of how a lot of these men were convicted based on false testimony, and really what I would call a lack of accountability measures that we need in order to ensure that our police department is respectful of what occurs in the city of Detroit. And so part of my conversation today will be a twofold conversation. One aspect of my conversation will really focus on the lives of the men who were wrongfully incarcerated. The second aspect of my conversation will really begin to focus on how we can begin to change the policing in the city of Detroit, so that we can ensure that officers are accountable, that we put in measures in the contract to ensure that things like false testimony are not tolerated. I think one interesting aspect, this program actually was sponsored by Rhonda Cheetah Mitchum. She's a very active person in the community, really connected with the Kronk. She had a relationship with Emmanuel Stewart and his wife in the Kronk Gym, and kind of grew up in that area with a lot of relatives and family and friends who participated in the program. And so what was interesting and nice about the program was the fact that she took her time, effort, energy, and money to create a program by which we could honor these men. They're called Michigan exonerees, because they are people who were wronged by our system of justice. And as black folks, we clearly understand how the system of justice oftentimes mistreats us. We've been mistreated more often than not. And also that there are hundreds of men who are still left incarcerated, that we need to begin to move forward with the system of activist justice to ensure that these things occurred. Another good thing about the program was that there was a young man who was he was enrolled in Wayne State. very active in the community, volunteers in a lot of different neighborhood associations, and he retold the story about how the police attempted to frame him because he simply was standing outside of a house, his relative's house. A house next door had been raided for drugs because they were standing outside because they had, quote, the look of our young African-American men with the hoodies on, with the gym shoes, that the police just automatically assumed that they were part of the folk who were doing the illegal conduct. Well, this young man was pretty intelligent, I would say. He had the ability to articulate himself, and he let it be known that he was not happy with how the police were actually treating him. And so what occurred as a result of his mouth, as he told the story, he got charges slapped on him. And he was charged, he was arraigned, and in most situations like this, young black man framed, evidence planted on him, false testimony of officers is usually a one-way road to imprisonment. Well, because he actually had a relationship with Tyrone Carter, state rep, Tyrone Carter was able to refer him to an attorney by the name of Gerald Evelyn, an attorney that I've known and worked with on a number of occasions, and because of the level of representation that he had, the charges ultimately ended being thrown out. But here you had a situation where a young man was lucky because he had a relationship with a state rep who knew an attorney who would raise and mount a credible defense on his behalf. And so his circumstances turned out much differently than the hundreds of other young men and women who were placed in that position. The other side of the coin with respect to the exonerees was the notion that there's compensation that should be paid and is owing to them. When you look at a man like Bruce Siggers, I believe, who was incarcerated for more than 34 years, 34 years of your life that you spend in prison for a crime that you did not commit. So you go into prison in a much different day and age, and you come out of prison with cell phones and internet technology and remote controls that you have no way of even understanding how these things operate. And because you've been institutionalized for so long, there is a mindset that you have to begin to free yourself from. Because when an institution, as they relayed the story, you're told what time to get up. You're told what time to take a shower. You're told what time to eat. You're told what time of recreational time you could have. You're told almost how you can think. And so you have to begin to retrain yourself and to put your attitude back in a mindset that allows you to be a productive citizen. And that takes a series of steps that you have to go through in order to understand that these people were wrongfully incarcerated. We're not talking about people who were convicted based on valid evidence. We're talking about men who were convicted based on false testimony. And the story that I took from that was the incredible intestinal fortitude that these men had to take a tragedy which occurred in their life, to move past the tragedy that occurred, to take that experience and try to create a positive experience not only for themselves but for those around them, so that you have people who are really and looking forward to moving forward with their lives and being engaged and being very productive citizens. And so a number of the men who were participating in that program have become national speakers. They're going across the country to speak to a number of organizations and issues, and even police officers and prosecutors, to understand the need and the necessity for having conviction integrity units within prosecutors' office, to have the necessary level of funding that will support these types of efforts to move forward, because we all know that there have been a number of bad situations where we've had bad prosecutors, some bad judges, and bad lawyers who participated in allowing for wrongful convictions to occur. And so we've got to begin to move to address that issue, because it's so important to have a criminal justice system that we can feel that we're going to get a fair shake when we've been legitimately charged with something. And so it was a great program. I want to thank Rhonda Cheetah Mitchell for having that program, for inviting me to speak. I was able to talk at that program about the need for accountability, but we also have a need for relationships, because I think part of the fracture between the community and the police department is that we almost don't know one another. And when you have a police force that is made up primarily of people who have not from the community, they really have a different feel and flavor for what policing should be. You know, the motto is to protect and serve, not to harass and arrest. And I think we've got to begin to move towards a more just relationship. We've got to change the connection of the department. We've got to recruit more young people to be involved, you know, within the policing itself. I think in talking with a lot of activists about the issue of policing and community involvement, part of what I see is that I like to see more effort made at how we actually engage our young people to want to become police officers and firefighters in the public service sector. I think part of the reason how we change institutions is that we have two ways of changing the institution. Obviously, you can have activism on the outside and people pushing for change, but you also need to have officers on the inside, people who have the same commitment to community policing, people who have the same commitment for understanding that we are all in this together, that the people that we are working to work with, that we understand who they are and how we can make their lives better, how we can be much more productive. And so there are a number of things that we will begin to talk about as we explore the issue of community policing. What does that really mean? When people talk about community policing, what are they really saying? You know, we have notions of what community policing might be. I have my theories of what that should be, but that might not be what you believe community policing should be. And so we have to begin to debate, to explore, and to properly understand how we bring all of our disparate notions of community policing together to come up with a model that ensures that our citizens are protected. I think when we first begin to examine the issue of policing, we have to understand where the notion of police actually come from. You know, obviously we just went through a month of African American history, but we should always be in African American history and understanding our past and where we come from. We have a unique understanding about the role of the police and how they were constructed to really enforce a lot of the slave laws. And we've got to begin to change the mentality of what policing is, what policing should be, so that we put ourselves in a position to move our police department forward, to have a police department that is really reflective of our core values on how we want to engage ourselves and to engage our citizens. At the end of the day, the power that we have as a community to understand how we direct our police department, how our police department should interact with the people, how we train our police officers, what our expectations of police officers should be, what are the expectations the police officers should have with respect to the citizens. All these things are part and parcel of conversations that we have to have because we need to understand what is important, how we begin to move forward, how we can make it much more productive, how we can have a much more constructive relationship, because we all want safety, we all want security within our homes, and we want the ability to, when we call on and need the police, that they respond in a professional manner, that they respond with the appropriate interaction with our citizens, so that we don't put ourselves in bad position when we call the police, when we're asking for help, and we end up in a protagonistic relationship with the police department. So when we come back from our break, we're going to talk more about the notions of how we community police, how do we go about ensuring that we have the necessary resources to support community policing. What are the expectations of the community with respect to the police department? What are the expectations that people should have? What are the expectations that the police officers should have when engage our situation? So when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about those issues. So I am Anthony Adams. This is the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show, and we look forward to engaging some of our listeners when we come back from our break.
Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. Be seen on WHPR Detroit Live, Comcast Cable Channel 91, on the web at TV33WHPR.com, with the TV33 app, on Roku, Google TV, Apple TV, and on Amazon Fire TV. Act now. Time slots are limited. Sign up today and get a free replay with the purchase of your time slot. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
If you or someone you know is facing eviction and has a notice to quit or a court order summons, complaint, or judgment, there is help to avoid eviction. Call the Detroit Eviction Helpline at 866-313-2520 or visit DetroitEvictionHelp.com. The City of Detroit with the State of Michigan have eviction prevention programs to assist Detroit residents with financial assistance and legal representation. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. That's 866-313-2520 or go online to DetroitEvictionHelp.com. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. 866-313-2520. Get help today.
Hi, this is LaWanda.
This is RJ Watkins.
Coming to you to bring you some information about the #1 detox in the nation, Lemon Burn. Lemon Burn helps to turn the fat into fit. It's for you, a happier, healthier you, because you know healthy is the new beautiful. An all-natural way to improve your health. It promotes a healthy digestive system, attacks and reduces belly fat, as well as gives you energy. Need to get yours today. Call 313-868-6612.
Don't forget to exercise and eat right.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit. We deserve better.
Welcome back. My name is Anthony Adams, and I am the host of the We Detroit, We Deserve Better, a show that talks about current issues impacting our lives in the community, how we can begin the process of moving forward to have a much more robust community, how we can have much more robust engagement and conversation with respect to the issues that are so prevalent in our community. And so my topic today, obviously, I begin speaking about the Michigan Exoneree honorary ceremony where we honored 10 men who collectively have been incarcerated for more than 200 years based on the false testimony of police officers. And then I begin to move our conversation into the area of community policing. What does that really look like? What is the structure of community policing? How do we end up with a program and a process and a policies that support active engagement in our community? And so when we get into the conversation about understanding what community policing is, I think we first have to begin from a construct of what actually is community policing. Is community policing simply having police officers who visit the schools and our education institution and talks with our citizens, talks with our students? Is community policing officers riding down the streets and stopping in stores as they're on their route to engage the citizens? Is community policing a program by which community are serving in mental health facilities and recreation centers and homeless shelters so that they have a better understanding of what the community is and what the community expects? Is community policing actively engaging in recruiting our young people to be involved in the process? Exactly what does community policing look like? And so when we have to first begin with the notion of why do we have police? Well, obviously we have to maintain a certain level of order within our society, and we know oftentimes that people cannot resolve conflict amongst themselves. And so that requires us to have a mechanism by which we can enforce our laws, because we're set up in the construct of a legal system that requires people to operate under various norms, societal norms. And so we understand that. But when we talk about policing ourselves, I think what we have to begin to understand is that the police are really only a byproduct of what we need, and that part of what we have to have in our community is a clear understanding and relationship between who we are and how we deal with one another. You know, the basis of any orderly society is premised upon people having a level of mutual respect and understanding for each other. You know, when I was growing up way back in the day, you know, in the 50s and 60s, and until late into the 70s, part of what you had was you had an ecosystem of neighborhoods where people understood and they were bounded by a common experience. Whether you had Miss Jones at the end of the block who didn't have any kids, whether you had the Johnsons who may have had 10 kids, whether you had a house like mine where I was the only child, we all had a common experience in our neighborhood and understood that we were all bound together in a system of mutual respect. And so what would happen in those days was that if Miss Johns caught you doing something bad, you know, after she spanked your butt, she sent you home and she called your mother on those old phones we used to have back in the day with the little rotary dial. They'd call your mom up and say, Miss Adams, you know Anthony was out there throwing rocks at the window and doing something bad. So not only did I get spanked by Miss Johnson, I also, when I got home, I get spanked again. And so we had mutual respect in our neighborhoods because we took it upon ourselves to really police ourselves. And that was because we had a sense of community where that, you know, that if Bobby Jones family didn't really have the resources and it was around dinner time, he was kind of hanging around your house because he kind of knew you had a little extra, that your mother would invite him in and sit him at the table and provide him with a meal. There was that sense of community that we had with one another, so that when situations arose in our neighborhoods, we were able to deal with that at a one-on-one personal level because we had mutual respect for one another. And I think as time goes down and there's been a breakdown within the structure of a lot of our neighborhoods because of issues of poverty, because of issues of drug addiction, we kind of moved away from that. But we've got to understand where we need to be in order to have a healthy community. We've got to have healthy people within the community. And part of a notion of community policing is understanding what the issues of the community are and how we begin to address those issues, whether it's issues of drug addiction, whether it's issues of homelessness, whether it's the issues of acute poverty. How do we understand the impact of those symptoms on a much broader issue of how we police ourselves? And so as we begin to understand the notion of real community policing, the real notion of community policing recognizes that there are broader issues in play that we have to deal with. And when you have a police department and asking them to do all things, they can't be all things to all people. And we have to understand there are limits to what our expectations should be of the police department. We've got to begin to compartmentalize exactly what they do and put them in roles where they are doing exactly what they need to do when we need to call on them. And so when I talk about community policing, I talk about, one, having an organic relationship with our community, an organic relationship with our neighbors. You know, in this day and age, oftentimes you can go down the street and the people don't know the neighbor who's living to the left or to the right of them. That doesn't lend itself to have organic relationships. It doesn't lend itself to have a mutual spirit of reflect and cooperation. And so we've got to begin to work our neighborhoods, bring back our strong pride in our community block clubs and organizations so that people have relationships with one another, so that when I get in trouble, I can call on a friend. I can call on my neighbor to help and assist me do what I need to do. That's a broader notion of what community policing should look like. But when you're talking about building healthy neighborhoods and having strong communities, that is where we need to be. We can't expect the police to create strong neighborhoods if we don't have strong people within our neighborhoods who have relationships with one another. And so that's one aspect of community policing. How do we begin to direct the resources necessary to serve our community, to provide people with the access and the tools that they need in order to uplift and improve the quality of their life? I always say that we can't address the underlying issues of crime if we don't address the underlying issues of poverty, of hopelessness and helplessness within our communities. And the more we begin to understand how we move those sort of aspirational things forward, we put ourselves in a much better position, I think, to utilize our police resources in a much more effective manner. So what does that entail? That clearly entails us transforming the model of how we police ourselves. We've got to be much more efficient, much more effective in providing intervention strategies for people within our communities. We've got to have programs by which people who are not sworn police officers are actually engaging our citizens in issues where they can assist. For example, in the issue of homelessness, which is oftentimes created as a crime, misdemeanors, people are taken off to the Wayne County Jail, if nothing more than the fact that they are outside living on the streets. Well, how is that helping us to criminalize that type of conduct, which oftentimes may have an origin in some type of mental health issue, may have an origin in some type of drug issue, or may just have an origin in the fact that the person is down and out on their luck? How do we criminalize that type of conduct when it's really symptomatic of something deeper than that? And so we've got to have a trained community intervention specialist, a force of people who are focused on the homeless issue, who understand the needs of our homeless population. How do we address and provide services to people who don't have an address? How do we create a mechanism for them to be able to communicate when they don't have a cell phone? How do we maintain contact and communication with them to provide them with the services that they need? If we aren't focusing our efforts and attentions in that area, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, because we will constantly call the police to this issue and deal with the issue of homelessness when it's really an issue of hopelessness, an issue of mental health, or a drug addiction that we really need to be trying to convert and divert people into the services that they need. If we're going to move in that direction, that means we're required to provide transitional housing services throughout our neighborhoods. You know, when we ride through the city of Detroit, we have a number of vacant and abandoned schools that could be used for transitional housing services for people who need assistance. If we're trying to help people uplift and improve the quality of their life, why not providing them with the transitional housing services in a facility that can provide them with additional wraparound services to help them with their mental health issues, to help them with their drug addiction issues, to help them with their job employment issues, to help them with their education issues. These are all things that are very important if we're talking about transforming the police department, transforming the services that we offer to our citizens, and putting people in a much better position. If at the end of the day, the object is to create productive and healthy citizens within the city of Detroit, the more we work on providing healthy citizens in our city, the more we work in providing the services that people need, the more we work on providing people with the tools of what they need in order to uplift and improve the quality of their life, then it puts us in a much better position. So now we're using our resources that would normally go to crime enforcement. We're using those resources for treatment and cure, which I believe provides a bridge and a pathway to how we get things done. I think another issue when we talk about community policing is actually, what are we policing? You know, when you talk about issues of possessions of small amounts of drugs, for example. Well, if I catch you with a small amount of drugs, well, now we know marijuana is legal, and you can't smoke in your car. Okay, let's get that clear. You can't smoke in your car, but you can have a small amount on your person. Well, if you have a small amount of heroin on your person, well, that's a criminal issue. If you have a small amount of meth in your possession, well, it's a criminal issue. But we all know that those issues are diseases that need to be addressed. And what was ironic about this whole opioid thing was that when black folks was on heroin back in the day, they called it heroin. It was a criminal issue. And if you got caught with heroin, you were convicted and you were in prison. And now, as the opioid crisis became a major issue in the white community, all of a sudden it's become a treatment issue. Well, we're going to ride that train too. And so what I'm proposing is that when we catch people with small amounts of other types of substances other than marijuana, that instead of imprisoning and writing tickets, then we write tickets to get you treatment. We've got to use more specialized courts to address these issues, because again, we don't need to criminalize a disease. We need to provide you with the tools and resources that you need in order to move forward and become a much more productive citizen. And so when we come back from our break, I'm going to further amplify on what I mean by community policing, how we can create an effective model for ourselves. If we're talking about 21st century policing, we need to have a 21st century mindset for how we accomplish that. And so my name is Anthony Adams. I'm the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better. And when we come back from our break, we're going to spend a little more time. We're going to keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the issue of community policing and community reform.
Hi, this is LaWanda,
This is RJ Watkins.
coming to you to bring you some information about the #1 detox in the nation, Lemon Burn. Lemon Burn helps to turn the fat into fit. It's for you, a happier, healthier you, because you know healthy is the new beautiful. An all-natural way to improve your health. It promotes a healthy digestive system, attacks and reduces belly fat, as well as gives you energy. Need to get yours today. Call 313-868-6612.
Don't forget to exercise and eat right.
Now you can watch WHPR TV 33 on Fire Stick. Catch all of your favorites. Stay informed. Don't miss a minute of your favorite talk shows. Call, text, tweet, post. WHPR TV 33 is worldwide on Fire Stick. For more information, go to FirestickTVNetwork.com or call us at 313-868-6612. WHPR TV 33, a Watkins Broadcasting Company.
If you or someone you know is facing eviction and has a notice to quit or a court order summons, complaint, or judgment, there is help to avoid eviction. Call the Detroit Eviction Helpline at 866-313-2520 or visit DetroitEvictionHelp.com. The City of Detroit with the State of Michigan have eviction prevention programs to assist Detroit residents with financial assistance and legal representation. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. That's 866-313-2520 or go online to DetroitEvictionHelp.com. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. 866-313-2520. Get help today.
Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. Be seen on WHPR Detroit Live, Comcast Cable Channel 91, on the web at TV33WHPR.com, with the TV33 app, on Roku, Google TV, Apple TV, and on Amazon Fire TV. Act now. Time slots are limited. Sign up today and get a free replay with the purchase of your time slot. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
All media platforms are engaged.
Copy.
Get ready to launch your show or product.
Periscope ready. We're 5x5 ready to launch. Copy that.
Trend worldwide across all major platforms.
Ignition. 3, 2, 1.
The world is waiting. Watkins Broadcasting. More than just TV.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit. We Deserve Better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit. We deserve better.
Welcome back to We Detroit, We Deserve Better. My name is Anthony Adams, and I'm your host on this program. And I certainly always enjoy talking with the audience and getting questions from people so that we can dig deeper and deeper into the issues that are impacting and affecting our lives. And so our today's topic, we started out talking about the Michigan exonerees, men who are wrongfully convicted, who collectively, the last program I went to, served more than 200 years for wrongful incarceration. How do we create a system of accountability, ensure that these types of problems don't exist within our community, because we clearly don't need to have police officers providing bad testimony to put people behind bars. When we last left our last segment, we were talking about the notion of community policing and what that really entails. And I was laying out what I believe is a very effective strategy on how we begin to move forward to address these types of issues for things that we're calling criminal conduct, and yet really are a byproduct of the existence of poverty within our community. And so when we continue to lay out the issues of how we enforce our laws, I was speaking to the notion of decriminalizing certain types of conduct and really what I call a de-escalation philosophy on how we police. And so, for example, if we have a situation where a person is riding down the streets, they have a bad tail light, they have defective equipment on their car. Well, we all know that oftentimes people don't have their insurance up to par. They don't have insurance, and they're riding dirty. And so what happens is this person is stopped by the police for equipment failure. That then escalates because when I ask you for your driver's license or insurance, you may not have either. You may have one, you may not have the other. So even if you have your driver's license, you don't have insurance. So you end up with a civil infraction, a misdemeanor ticket for failure to drive with improper insurance. Well, obviously that then puts you in the criminal justice cycle because you didn't have to go to 36th District Court or 30th District Court if you're in Highland Park. You have to go before the judge, and the question is, did you have invalid insurance on the day in question that you were stopped? Well, oftentimes the answer to that is no. So you end up with points on your driving records, which makes it much more expensive for you to get insurance in the event that you want to get insurance, so you have the financial ability to buy insurance. And then you end up also with a misdemeanor conviction on your record for lack of insurance, which puts you in a much different class and category of insurance, because now your insurance rates will be much higher. Well, heck, if you had insurance to begin with, if you had the money to get the insurance, you would not have been in that situation. And so part of my approach to when I start talking about community policing is really de-escalating the conflict and the opportunities for officers to actually engage the citizens in issues that technically are a violation of the law, but in reality are nothing more than a reflection of the existence of poverty in a person's household, the inability to have the income necessary to buy the necessary insurance coverage, and the inability to even get your car fixed. And so what I would be proposing as we begin to transition our 21st century policing is to de-escalate that type of conduct. Well, you know what, it might be a situation where the officer hits his lights and tells you, look, you have defective equipment on your car, you really need to get that fixed. That's actually a public service, a warning for you, because you understand that you probably need to do something. Maybe you kind of hustle up some money and get that equipment fixed so you don't get stopped for that necessary violation. But on the other side of the coin is it's not a situation where officers have to aggressively engage you in trying to understand why you don't have insurance, why you don't have a driver's license. It's more of a public service approach to what we do, because we need to de-escalate the level of conflict and confrontation between our citizens. It's simply another issue with, for example, would be park infractions. Okay, it's at the park. Parks close at 11 o'clock. We all know that. Summertime, people want to hang out a little longer, so they're still in the park. Instead of writing misdemeanor and tickets for people for park infractions, we're going to go back to the good old days where we tell you, look, the park is closed. You need to move your behind. You need to get out the park and go someplace else and do whatever you're going to do. Again, we're not talking about enforcing laws that are on the books that technically an officer could enforce, but when we're trying to decriminalize conduct and create a much better relationship between ourselves and our police and our community, well, maybe that's almost, again, becomes a much more of a public service approach to how we engage our citizens, because we don't need our police kind of enforcing a lot of laws that they exist on the books, but they really lead to conflict, and they also lead to a lot of our young people and some of our old folk to accumulating civil infractions, tickets, and things of that nature that inhibit them from moving forward. Yes, I know we made some changes with respect to expungement laws and things of that nature, but what if we took it one step further and didn't address it on the front end, provided people with a break? You know, when in the old days in Detroit, when you got stopped by the police, the first thing they asked you was what you got outstanding on yourself. You got any warrants? You got any tickets? Whatever you got, you need to tell me, because I don't necessarily want to run your name through the system and you come up with a lien check, which means I have to take you in because I've got a hit on that system. Creating a much more different relationship between people, creating a much more different dynamic between our police officers and ourselves, because it allows us to engage folk, to point out things that need to be addressed, and provide you with the opportunity to move forward with your life. Now, again, I'm not saying that if you just commit an armed robbery, that I say, you know what, you just robbed somebody, you need to keep going. That's not what I'm saying. Don't try to twist it, because I think oftentimes people want to twist when you talk about how we decriminalize conduct and how we do things differently. They act as if you're soft on crime. No, if you commit a murder, a rape, a robbery in the community, you should be dealt with and addressed in the appropriate fashion. But when we're talking about the far other end of the spectrum, whether it's civil misdemeanors or infractions that occur, and we can give someone a break and diffuse the situation and the tension between the officers, then why are we not doing that? While we continue to over-police ourselves in a city that's 80% black, why do we continue to do that? We've got to, again, change the way we think, change how we deal with our officers, change how our officers deal with us. You know, when I talked earlier about what are the expectations that citizens should have of the police department, well, those expectations are real simple. 1, we expect you to be courteous. 2, we expect you to be professional. 3, we expect you to be respectful. 4, we expect you to be about your business of trying to figure out exactly what it is. We don't want to call the police and be engaged in a confrontation with the police officer based on the fact that he's got a badge and a gun and he has a power and authority to do things to you. What we expect is that when the officer responds to the scene, that they will respond in a manner that is respectful, that's courteous, that understands that oftentimes when people are in a very traumatic situation, they may not act as nice as they need to be. And so there needs to be a certain level of tact and decorum that we expect from the officers, because the notion, when you talk about protect and serve, that's just what it is, protect and serve. And the service portion of it comes in understanding that often when the police come, is oftentimes it's a very difficult situation, and we have to, excuse me, we have to respect the people who are there, because oftentimes they're just simply looking for help. But by the same token, there also is the expectation on what the officers, I think, should expect, because it is a two-way street. You know, and respect is not given, it's earned. And so when the officers come to a situation, understanding the tension that exists, people need to try to be respectful, need to try to provide the information that the officer needs, need to communicate as best they can, understanding the dynamics of the energy that exists when you have to call the police to your situation, because the expectation should be part of a mutual respect and relationship between the people. To the extent that the police department understands that they're there to protect and serve, they need to operate in a manner that's very respectful. And to the extent that we've had to call the police, the people also need to be respectful and understanding that the police are also there to do a job. And if I've called the police, I need to have them respect me, but also need to respect the officers. It becomes a mutual level of respect. I think part and parcel, and when I talked earlier, is about the need to have officers who come from the community, who understand exactly what our issues are. And the more successful we are able to recruit our young men and women to become police officers, to become firefighters, to become EMS technicians, I think the better level of respect that we will have, because we're drawing from our community and from people who have shared in common experiences. You know, it doesn't help me to have a police officer who can't tell me what Joy Road in Southfield is or what Mack and Bewick is. If you're not from the community, you don't really know where that is, and you haven't really engaged with the people who live here. And so we've got to be much more aggressive and much more intentional in identifying issues on how we recruit our young men and our young women to become police officers. You know, we can't continue to demonize the police and make them the enemy and expect that our young people will want to take that as a career. It's really a disconnect between what we desire, what we are looking for, and what we expect from our police officers if in fact our young people aren't prepared to put the badge on and to protect and serve within our own community. I think we're really defeating the purpose of what we need if we continue to demonize one another. The police demonize the community demonize the police, because at that point we're always in conflict with one another, and it doesn't allow us the opportunity to move towards healing, to move towards understanding that we're all in this together. That when you work in the city of Detroit, when you're a police officer, you have a sworn duty to assist and protect the people. And conversely, the citizens of the city of Detroit have the right and the ability to respect our police officers, to make sure that we assist them in doing their jobs, and that we have a mutual level of respect of one another, so that we can begin to do the things that we need to do in order to make this happen. So how do we accomplish that? Well, one, it really starts with training on both ends. In our educational system, our young people need to be trained to understand exactly what your rights are, what the limits of police authority are, how do we engage in police and the de-escalation tactics. What do you do when you're stopped by the police? How do you handle that situation? There are a lot of things that we need to train our young people to understand, because every officer that we encounter may not necessarily have the same level of training, or background, or understanding of our community. And so the object is always for our young men and women to come home if they go out during the course of the day, and not to allow for a police stop to become a deadly situation. Conversely, we also need to change how we actually train our police officers. We can't expect them to go through a 6-week training course or an 8-week training course, learn how to shoot a gun, learn how to get in shape, learn how to write a ticket, learn how to put handcuffs on, expect them to be a 21st century police officer, because what police have to do today is far more different than what they had to do in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so we got to train them differently and expect a different result, and then put measures in place in both their contract so that they are accountable for what they do. And so when we come back from our break, in our last segment, we're gonna wrap all this up and come up with a final approach on how we can make our police force a 21st century police force, how we make it effective, how we make it responsible to the needs of the community. So my name is Anthony Adams. I'm the host of We Detroit, We Deserve Better. And when we come back from our break, we're gonna tie a bow around it and send it off in the world.
Hi, this is LaWanda.
This is RJ Watkins.
Coming to you to bring you some information about the #1 detox in the nation, Lemon Burn. Lemon Burn helps to turn the fat into fit. It's for you, a happier, healthier you. Because you know healthy is the new beautiful. An all-natural way to improve your health. It promotes a healthy digestive system, attacks and reduces belly fat, as well as gives you energy. Need to get yours today. Call 313-868-6612.
Don't forget to exercise and eat right.
Shelley Books and More. Short stories, poetry, and art contest for the youth. Cash prizes, $300 to $500 plus prizes. No entry fee. Go to ShelleyBooksandMore.com. Contact Shelley at 313-778-8009. Submit entries now and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Shelley Books and More. Also, listen to Shelley Books and More every other Tuesday, 4 p.m. on FM 88.1 WHPR, Radio We Can See.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit. We Deserve Better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit. We deserve better.
Good morning. This is Anthony Adams. I'm the host of We Detroit and We Deserve Better. And today our topic was 21st century policing and policing reform and community policing. How we address it, how do we create a system that works for all. You know, I started off this segment again by talking about the Michigan Exoneree Project, a program that was sponsored at the Kronk Boxing Community Center over there on Chicago and Metatol. sponsored by Rhonda Cheetah Mitchell, a community activist who has a long connection with the Kronk boxing. We had a program where we had more than 10 African-American men who had been wrongfully incarcerated based on the false testimony of police officers. These black men had served more than 200 years of imprisonment, false imprisonment, as a result of false testimony given by police officers. And so as we talked about the Exonerate Project, we begin to talk more about the notion of how we move to an aggressive community policing format. What does that look like? What does that entail? How do we train our officers? What are the expectations of the community with respect to engaging in police officers? And I said we would spend the last segment of our show kind of going through the steps of what's necessary in order to create a 21st century police organization that is skilled and trained and understands the needs of the community. How do we begin to educate our community in understanding what their rights are vis-a-vis the police department? And then how do we bring the two together to create a strong community? When our conversation, I also talked about the notion of strong neighborhoods and strong communities within our neighborhoods. That when we were growing up in the good old days of the 50s and 60s and 70s, we had a sense of community. How do we begin to restore this sense of community so that people have a level of respect for one another, so that when you come home, you don't park your car on the grass in the front yard? You really shouldn't have your barbecue pit, on the front porch. There's certain things that you do in order to have a strong community. So how do we begin to move all these elements, these multifaceted problems that we have, so that we can begin to move our community forward in a robust manner to create healthy and sound communities? And so a major tenet of community policing, obviously, is having a police department that protects and serves the community, that understands what their rights are, that understands what their roles are, how they should engage the community. And so part of what we need to do if we're going to create a 21st century police force is have 21st century training for our officers. We can't continue to train police officers in the same manner, in the same way, and expect a different result. That truly is the definition of insanity. And so what we've got to do is we've got to reconstruct. We've got to throw out the playbook for how our police officers are trained, and we've got to do something differently. And so part of what I'm proposing in order to create a 21st century police force is have our police officers who are in training work through a practicum of experiences that they will engage in when they become police officers. And so after they've gone through their basic education and training, they got their conditioning in place, they got some schooling in place, then they've got to begin to serve a period of public service in the community. And so the public service would consist of kind of the following elements. One, there clearly would be a need for our officers to be engaged in the mental health aspect of the spectrum, because oftentimes a lot of issues that officers confront on the streets have an origin in mental health issues. And so what we would do as a retrained force is that we would have our officers working in mental health institution facilities, whether it's facilities, enclosed facilities, whether it's outpatient treatment facilities. They've got to begin to understand what the issues are with respect to people who have mental health issues. I believe that level of training and experience in that environment will provide them with a much different approach to when they come to a scene and you have a mental health person. You won't necessarily view them as a threat, because ultimately in most situations like that, they really are more of a threat to themselves than they are to the officers. And so how do we begin to de-escalate how they approach a person with mental health issues? By working in a mental health facility, by understanding what those issues are, by having relationships and communicating with people who have mental health issues. I believe that would much more well-round their experience in policing when they encourage and encounter a police issue with mental health issues. Similarly, I believe that they should also serve some type of practicum with respect to how they engage the homeless population. We have a number of organizations that are out there that deal with homeless issues. Our officers in training should be working in these facilities, working with the professionals, understanding what the people, their needs are, talking with people who are homeless. This will allow them to have a much broader perspective on how they engage people who have homeless issues. Again, they won't necessarily view them as a threat, but they will view them with a person who has an issue. Oftentimes it's related to some type of mental health issue. Sometimes it's related to a drug issue. And more than that, it might also be related to a person who has a poverty issue. How do we address them? How do we treat them with the level of respect and dignity that they need so that we can continue to de-escalate the situation? Similarly, I also believe that as part of their training, they should also be engaged in working in our youth facilities. They should be actively involved in training and working in our schools. They should be meeting and talking with our young people. They should be much more aggressive in PAL activities, because we're building a connection and a bond between the community and the police who serve us, so that they understand that our children are no different than the kids in West Bloomfield, Grosse Pointe, Ecorse. They're all little kids. They all have issues. They all act up. We know they act up. I had kids. They got bad sometimes. I get it. But by working with our young people in these types of facilities and settings, again, we're de-escalating the nature of the relationship. We're creating a much more human approach to how we address and do these issues. Similarly, there also should be a part of that training which is engaged in working in drug treatment facilities. Again, the notion is that the more you work with people, the more you understand what their issues are, the more you understand how they react and communicate, the better it puts you in a position you're able to respond and to address these issues, so that when you encounter them in the field, you have a much more different perspective about why these people are acting the way they're acting. And it humanizes the relationship, because we've got to be in position to understand that when the police are out on the street, they need to understand that the people that they are addressing have issues. And if you don't understand, because you don't have any experience in mental health, you don't have experience with our young people, you don't have experience with homelessness issues, you don't have any experience with drug addiction and drug possession issues, it gives you a much better opportunity to, one, de-escalate the situation. If the object is to, when people encounter the police, whether or not to be an escalation of the situation, that's the kind of training that we need in order to move our police force in a manner that respects the population who they serve. There also is another component part of that, which I spoke to earlier, which is the need to provide education and training for our people to even understand what the nature of the police power is. What can police do when they stop you? What's necessary? How do you protect your rights and protect yourself from unwarranted searches and seizures? And then how do you de-escalate the situation? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that everybody comes home after a confrontation with the police department. And so we've got a multifaceted approach to how we change our community policing. One is we're committing the resources necessary to empower community organizations who engage in proactive methodologies for dealing with gun violence, for dealing with at-risk youth, for dealing with drug addiction, and dealing with homelessness. We've got to begin to use resources necessary to put the things in place that can help people on the front end. We know we only spend $7,900 a year to educate a child, but we'll spend $80,000 a year incarcerating a man. That formula doesn't work for me. We've got to begin to change that formula. We've got to change the paradigm and trajectory of what we have, because if we don't, we'll continue to put ourselves in a situation where we're spending more money to incarcerate people than educate. So again, my name is Anthony Adams. I'm your host of the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show. And I want to say thank you for tuning in and listening and understanding how we change the paradigm on community policing. And I'll see you next week.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better, live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit, and live stream on Facebook. We Detroit, We Deserve Better.